15 bullet outline your every morning. Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into a different kind of dream. You're not drifting in a cloud of fantasy. You're cracking your eyes open to a quiet room, the first hush of morning creeping through your blinds, and something in the air feels different. No buzzing alarms, no chaos, just potential, the kind you can almost taste. You're standing at the edge of a day you haven't lived yet, and it's yours to shape. But here's the part that might sting a bit. Most people never even try. They hit snooze. They stagger out of bed like reluctant zombies, and the moment is gone. Just like that. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I'd love to know who's joining me in this quiet little corner of the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes to the soft gray of dawn, but instead of jolting into action, or worse, burrowing deeper into the sheets, you stay still. You listen. A distant bird, the hum of your refrigerator, the tiny popping sounds of your bones realigning. You haven't moved yet, but something inside you has. You swing your legs over the side of the bed. No fanfare, no applause. But this moment, this quiet defiance of the snooze button, it matters more than anyone will ever know. Because how you begin sets the tone. The Stoics knew this long before the number 5 a.m. club was trending. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and reluctant philosopher, wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Notice he didn't say check emails or scroll Twitter until your brain leaks. Just breathe, think, enjoy, love. That's the real agenda. Now let's get even more uncomfortable. If you don't decide how your morning starts, someone or something will decide for you. Notifications, deadlines, regrets, that crusty leftover dream about your high school math teacher yelling at you. But here's a sneaky truth. The earlier you wake, the more of your day belongs to you. Not the world, not your inbox. You. 1 hour earlier doesn't sound like a revolution, but imagine what fits inside that hour. Silence, intention, a deep stretch, a slow sip of water, maybe even a bold idea that's been waiting for your mind to be still enough to catch it. Historians still argue whether early rising habits of ancient thinkers were more about discipline or necessity, but either way, the pattern is clear. From Benjamin Franklin to Maya Angelou, the quiet of morning has been a birthplace for ideas that shaped entire civilizations, and yet, there you are. Just you and the floor, cold on your feet, maybe a creaky joint or two. No lightning bolt of motivation, no choir of angels, just the chance to begin. Now let's joke a little. Is it a coincidence that your bed feels extra comfy when you need to get up early? Like it grew 2 inches of cloud fluff overnight? It's not you. It's the bed, it's clingy. But you've got boundaries now. The first step out of bed isn't heroic. It's barely noticeable. But it's the beginning of a pattern. Every morning, you either shrink your life to fit your comfort zone or stretch into the discomfort of growth. Marcus would say, you have power over your mind, not outside events. So remind yourself of that when the urge to roll over and disappear returns like an old frenemy whispering, 5 more minutes. There's even a quirky little tidbit from ancient Egypt. In some temples, priests were woken up by being sprinkled with cold water as a sacred call to vigilance. Imagine that. Your spiritual awakening begins with a splash to the face. Sounds familiar, but you don't need a ceremonial splash. You need a decision to rise, not perfectly but deliberately. Not every morning will be majestic. Some will be sluggish. Some will start with a stubbed toe and an existential sigh. But you rise anyway. Because that act, rising on purpose, is your first moment of self-respect. It's your whispered declaration, I'm still in charge here. And even if the rest of the day spins out, you'll know you started strong. You didn't wait for the day to shape you. You shaped it. So, what do we do now that you're upright, awake, and mostly coherent? We keep going. You shuffle toward the kitchen like a half-awake pilgrim seeking your holy grail. Coffee. It's calling to you. The smell, the warmth, the promise of temporary alertness. But tonight, in this soft, sleepy corner of bedtime history, you pause. Because you're about to reroute the first decision of your day. And this tiny detour, it changes everything. Instead of the coffee pot, your hand reaches for a glass. Tall, clear, quiet. You fill it with water, maybe cold, maybe room temp, maybe with a lemon slice if you're feeling fancy. You raise it to your lips, and just like that, you do something revolutionary. You hydrate. Yeah, I know. It doesn't sound dramatic. It's not cinematic. But your brain, your poor, neglected, overnight dehydrated brain, it is cheering like you just won the Olympics. Because after 6-8 hours without fluid, your neurons are practically crawling. They don't need caffeine first. They need fuel. Water, as boring as it sounds, is the original clarity serum. It lubricates your joints, wakes up your cells, and tells your brain, hey, we're safe, we're alive, let's get moving. It's the first conscious signal that you're choosing intention over impulse. There's a quirky piece of trivia from ancient Rome. Gladiators were sometimes given a blend of vinegar and water called pasca before battle. Not wine, not food, but something to rehydrate and sharpen their senses. They didn't sip espresso. They prepped their bodies. Hydration was their pre-battle ritual. Your battle is life. And this is how you armor up. Epictetus, the ancient Stoic whose name always sounds like a Marvel villain, reminded us, progress is not achieved by luck or accident, but by working on yourself daily. Drinking water first thing is one of those daily invisible victories. No applause, no gold star. Just a subtle declaration that you respect the machine you live inside. Now let's be honest. You still want coffee, I get it. But here's the thing. Drinking water before caffeine actually makes your coffee work better. Your system isn't fighting dryness, fogginess, or fatigue. It's ready. And you? You're less reactive, more deliberate. Coffee becomes a tool, not a crutch. Historians still debate whether coffee culture in early Islamic societies was more spiritual or social. Used in Sufi rituals for energy during long prayer sessions or shared in group gatherings. Either way, the pattern emerges again. Intention first, stimulation second. But modern mornings? They flip that sequence. Most people wake up groggy and sprint toward stimulation before they've even asked themselves how they feel. You're reversing that. You're reintroducing stillness before stimulation. And let's joke about it for a second. This is the only time in your day when drinking something flavorless, colorless, and silent makes you feel like a superhero. But that's the trick. Discipline isn't loud, it's quiet. And hydration is your silent vote for vitality. Carl Jung, the guy who thought your dreams were secret messages from your soul, once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That automatic coffee grab, that's unconscious behavior. That water, that's conscious rebellion. A tiny moment where you interrupt your autopilot and replace it with awareness. You probably won't hear a choir of angels. You probably won't float into enlightenment. But you might notice that your thinking feels a little smoother. Your emotions, slightly steadier. Your body, not begging for mercy. All because of 8 ounces of liquid courage. And here's a quiet truth that even the best morning routines often miss. The real point isn't what you do, it's why you do it. The glass of water isn't magic, but the choice behind it? That's where the transformation begins. You're reminding yourself that you are not just reacting to the morning. You are designing it. So, after the water is down and your system says, thank you, then and only then you can go to your precious bean juice, but this time you'll sip it with awareness. Not desperation. You're not trying to escape your grogginess anymore. You've already met it head on, and you've already won. Your hand twitches toward your phone. Habitual, mindless, magnetic. You probably don't even notice it until you're halfway through the motion. But this morning you catch yourself. You hesitate. And in that 1 second of stillness, you reclaim something precious. Your attention. Let's not sugarcoat it. Your phone is a brilliant, buzzing, dopamine-spewing chaos machine. It wakes before you, waits beside you, and begs for your first conscious breath. The notifications, the red dots, the endless scroll of everyone else's curated chaos. But here's the question that stings a little. Why should they decide how you feel today? Think about it. You haven't even stood up yet and you're already reacting. Your peace, hijacked by someone else's political outrage, gym selfie, or passive-aggressive text. The ancient Stoics would have thrown their scrolls into the sea if they saw what we were voluntarily doing to our minds at dawn. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He didn't mean someday after coffee, he meant now. First thing, before you let the feed shape your frequency. Historians still argue whether the morning habits of figures like Benjamin Franklin or Leonardo da Vinci involved deliberate media avoidance, but the common thread remains: clarity before consumption. They used their early hours to generate thought, not absorb noise. Here's a fringe fact for fun. In the 1800s, some inventors believed that early morning light had specific inspirational properties, and they would sit in silence, facing the sunrise, to download ideas from the universe. Wild? Maybe. But the underlying idea was sound. Guard your mornings like a vault. So instead of grabbing your phone, you sit, you stretch, you breathe. Maybe you just look out the window. That's it. No productivity hustle. No Instagram hustle culture, guilt. Just presence. You're allowing your own mind to speak before the world starts shouting. And let's be real. Your phone isn't going anywhere. It'll still be there when you're done being a fully present, sovereign, intentional human being. For now, you've muted the madness. There's something beautifully rebellious about not checking your messages first thing. Like you're telling the world, I'll deal with your drama after I deal with my peace. And if you need a little joke to lighten the moment, yes, your group chat will survive without your sleepy-eyed emoji reply. I promise. Carl Jung warned us that we are not what happened to us. We are what we choose to become. Morning scrolling turns you into a reaction machine. But when you delay that scroll, even by 30 minutes, you choose. You sculpt. You create instead of consume. Now imagine this. You wake up, and instead of diving into dopamine soup, you read a quote. You sit in silence. You journal a line. You breathe. Just 10 quiet minutes. The difference? You start your day by responding instead of reacting. And that simple shift? That's the whole game. Here's what nobody tells you. Silence is strength, training for your mind. And every morning you delay the scroll, you strengthen that inner stillness muscle. You build a habit of returning to yourself before you offer yourself to the noise. Seneca once said, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." In 2025, that includes the apps you open. If your feed doesn't elevate you, why hand it your sacred first hour? So tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine waking into stillness. No screen, no feed, just you, alive, aware, and fiercely in control. You don't have to abandon your phone forever. You just have to stop letting it be your morning shepherd. You're not a digital sheep. You're the one who decides when the gates open. The room is still quiet. You're up. You've hydrated. You haven't doom-scrolled yourself into a cortisol pit. And now, standing in that sleepy, sacred space between waking and doing, you make a choice that feels almost silly. You make your bed, that's it. Just pull the sheets tight, straighten the pillows, smooth the blanket, done in under a minute, no applause, no trophy. No one will even see it. And yet, it shifts something deep inside. Because this isn't about linens. It's about order. About declaring the chaos stops here. Before emails, before errands, before the avalanche of adulting, you've taken one small corner of the universe and made it neat. Intentional. Yours. There's a reason Admiral William McRaven once said, "If you want to change the world, start by making your bed." It's not just a military platitude, it's psychological physics. A completed task builds momentum. One act of order echoes across your entire day. Even the Stoics, those champions of inner fortitude, understood the value of simple disciplines. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't waste the rest of your life worrying about what other people think of you." And isn't that what a messy room sometimes reflects? A mind tangled up in the outside world instead of rooted in the present one. Historians still debate whether ancient Roman households had formal rituals around waking and tidying, but evidence shows that early mornings often included structured preparation, bathing, prayer, dressing, arranging one's space. It wasn't random, it was a signal. The day begins with intention. And here's a quirky modern tidbit for you. In Japan, there's an entire cleaning philosophy called osoji, a yearly ritual of deep cleaning to prepare the home and spirit for a fresh start. But what if you didn't wait for December? What if you began every day with a micro osoji, starting with your bed? It might sound too small to matter, but so is a spark before a fire. So is a heartbeat before a life. Because here's what's really happening when you tuck in that corner and fluff that pillow. You're keeping a promise to yourself. A simple one, sure, but promises kept, even tiny ones, build something far more important than neat sheets. They build trust. And trust in yourself? That's the foundation of everything. Productivity, focus, confidence. All of it begins with the quiet knowing, I do what I say I'll do, even if it's as mundane as blankets and corners. Let's make fun of it for a moment. Making your bed doesn't make you enlightened. It doesn't solve existential dread or erase your to-do list. But it does give you something rare and powerful, a win. And let's be honest, some mornings that's exactly what you need. A win before you've even had breakfast. Carl Jung, never one to ignore symbolism, believed that our external environment reflects our internal state. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Look around your room. Is it calm or chaotic? What story is your space telling you about your mind? A tidy bed doesn't just look good, it feels good. Not because of aesthetics, but because of alignment. It's the outer mirror of inner discipline. And no, It won't make the world behave, but it will remind you that you don't have to match the mess around you. You can choose order, quietly, powerfully. The act is simple, but the ripple is real. You start your day with a completed task, and that first completion nudges you toward the next. You brush your teeth, you stretch, you tackle a project, you show up better. Why? Because you already started strong. Remember, greatness doesn't grow out of grand gestures. It's forged in small, repeated choices. Making your bed is one of those choices. A tiny daily whisper. I respect myself enough to begin well. So tonight, as you fall asleep, picture that moment tomorrow. You rise. You resist the scroll. You hydrate. And then you make your bed. Not for the bed, but for the message it sends. The message that you are in charge. That discipline lives here. That today, like every day, begins on your terms. You've made your bed, quite literally. And now it's time to reawaken a part of you that's still dragging behind. Because while your mind might be halfway into clarity, your body's still stuck somewhere between dreamland and drywall. You can feel it. The stiffness in your back, the sluggish limbs, the weight of gravity reminding you that no, you're not floating into greatness today. Not yet. But what if I told you the fastest way to align mind and body isn't through a motivational podcast or some expensive productivity app, but through motion? Slow, gentle, deliberate movement. This isn't about smashing out 200 push-ups or running a 5K before sunrise. It's about sending a message to your nervous system. I'm here. I'm alive. Let's begin. You stretch your arms overhead. Rotate your neck. Flex your feet. Maybe even shuffle into a few slow squats or lean into a lazy downward dog. It's not glamorous. But your cells are waking up like, oh hey, we're doing this? The Stoics understood the value of physical strength, not as a path to vanity, but as a gateway to vitality. Epictetus, who walked with a limp for most of his life, didn't preach about six-pack abs. He preached about effort. No great thing is created suddenly, he said. That includes energy. That includes mastery. And yes, that includes a strong, steady self. Historians still debate whether Roman Stoics practiced formalized exercise the way Greek athletes did, but we do know that daily physical readiness, preparedness for cold, hunger, war, was baked into their worldview. They didn't train for aesthetics. They trained for life. And here's a strange modern parallel. Did you know that even just 5 minutes of early morning movement can increase dopamine and serotonin levels in the brain? Those are your feel-good chemicals. That light post-stretch fuzz you feel, that's biology doing its happy dance, but let's not get too serious. If you're doing sleepy lunges in pajamas and one sock, congratulations, you're doing it right. This isn't about elegance. It's about awakening. Just enough to pull your soul back into your skin. Carl Jung, the psychology whisperer, believed deeply in the body-mind connection. He said the body is the visibility of the soul. Think about that. If your body is locked up, stiff, resisting movement, what might that say about your psyche? That it's stuck? That it's protecting something, that it needs help returning to flow? And here's the weird part. Motion doesn't just wake the body. It breaks emotional stagnation. You ever feel stuck, anxious, low-grade angry for no reason? Move. Not because it solves your problems, but because it dissolves the fog around them. The science backs it up. Moving increases blood flow to the brain, improves executive function, and enhances your mood before the day has a chance to test it. This isn't just exercise. This is defense. This is strategy. This is an act of mental hygiene. But don't mistake it for a workout. This is a ritual, A small sacred signal that you're choosing to engage with the world instead of sleepwalking through it. And yes, it's going to feel awkward at first. Your spine might sound like bubble wrap. Your balance might be questionable. That's okay. You're not here to impress. You're here to reconnect. And let's joke about it for a second. Nobody looks graceful doing sleepy squats while dodging their cat and trying not to step on yesterday's laundry. But that's the charm. That's how you know it's real. You're not prepping for a photo shoot. You're warming up for your own life. And like any good ritual, this one builds over time. At first it's clumsy. Then it becomes comforting. Eventually, it becomes a groove. A pattern your body recognizes before your brain even catches up. And that groove? That's momentum. You don't need discipline to move once. You need it to move daily. That's what builds confidence. Not the reps, but the repetition. And when you finish, just 5, maybe 10 minutes later, something inside you feels different, sharper, cleaner. Like you've shaken off not just sleep, but hesitation. Because now you're not just awake. You're active. You've reminded your body that it's not a machine, it's an instrument. And every morning you get to tune it. You're warm now. Limbs loose, blood flowing, mind and body finally on speaking terms. And then, you do something outrageous. You step into the shower, but not just any shower. You go cold, freezing, stinging, curse under your breath cold, and in that first second your brain panics. Every cell screams, nope, not today. But you do it anyway. You don't flinch. You breathe. You stay. Because this, right here, is the moment when your real morning begins. Welcome to the ancient art of voluntary discomfort. The Stoics, those chill philosophers who believed in keeping calm while Rome literally burned, were obsessed with facing adversity on purpose. Not because they were gluttons for punishment, but because they knew comfort makes you soft. And softness is a liability in a chaotic world. Seneca fasted. He wore coarse clothes. Marcus Aurelius wrote about imagining loss so he could meet reality with clarity, not shock. They didn't avoid discomfort. They rehearsed it. And cold exposure, that's your modern version. No togas required. Historians still debate whether ancient bathhouses incorporated cold plunges for philosophical or purely hygienic reasons. But one thing's certain, deliberately doing hard things has always been a training ground for greatness. So here you are, naked, freezing, fully alive. And let's not pretend it's not pleasant. That first icy splash feels like betrayal, like your soul just tried to exit through your skin. But then, something shifts. The breathing slows. The panic fades. You're not dying. You're adapting. Carl Jung would have a field day with this. He believed what we resist persists, that our fear of pain often causes more suffering than the pain itself. Cold water is a perfect metaphor. It's not the cold. It's your resistance to the cold. Once you surrender, you take your power back. The science? Oh, it's real. Cold showers trigger norepinephrine release, a neurotransmitter that boosts alertness and focus. They reduce inflammation, increase circulation, and yes, even help with mild depression. But more than that, they jolt you into the present. You can't scroll Instagram in a cold shower. You can't mentally rehash that awkward conversation from yesterday. All you can do is breathe. Deeply. Fully. Now. And that's why this matters. Because that moment, when you want to run, to shut it off, to hide, you don't. You stay. You override that ancient survival instinct that says, avoid discomfort at all costs. And in doing so, you prove something you'll need all day. You are stronger than your impulses. Let's laugh for a second. Cold showers might be the most effective form of accidental opera practice. 1 minute in, and you're hitting vocal notes you didn't know you had. It's less of a shower and more of a primal scream therapy session with plumbing. But beneath the shrieking is something sacred, something brave. Because most people avoid discomfort at every turn. They cancel hard conversations. They procrastinate. They reach for comfort food, comfort content, comfort lies. You chose to begin your day with resistance, and that resistance builds resilience. Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." You're not just rinsing your body, you're sharpening your character. You're rehearsing for stress, for pressure, for life. And this daily act, it doesn't stay in the shower. It follows you into your meetings, into your relationships, into moments where quitting feels easier. But you've already done something harder. You've already stood under the ice and said, "I do hard things." And the beautiful irony? After all that shock, after all that resistance, you step out of the shower glowing, energized, present, unshakable. You didn't need coffee. You needed courage. Even a 30-second blast can shift your physiology. You don't need 5 minutes. You just need one moment of grit, one cold burst of clarity. Because cold water doesn't just wake your body, it wakes your will. And once that's awake, there's not much in the day that can shake you. The bathroom is warm again, towel wrapped, steam rising, pulse steady. You've just conquered something primal, and now something quieter calls. Not a challenge this time, but a clearing. You find a seat. Maybe it's at your desk, or by a window, or cross-legged on the floor. You reach for a pen, or maybe a keyboard. And before your brain has a chance to object, you write. It doesn't have to be neat. It doesn't have to be smart. It just has to be real. You journal, not for likes. Not for some romantic idea of becoming a poet monk with perfect handwriting, but for one sacred purpose, to empty what's full. Your head's been swirling with dreams, tasks, fragments of conversations, flashes of doubt. Left unchecked, they form a loop, a background hum that steals your clarity without ever announcing itself. But writing is how you untangle the thread. Marcus Aurelius did it every morning. His now famous Meditations wasn't a book. It was a journal. Notes to self. Reminders. Course corrections. Never meant for the world to see. Just a Stoic emperor keeping his mind sharp and his ego in check. Seneca too wrote letters to himself. "We should every night call ourselves to an account," he said. Reflection wasn't indulgence, it was armor, it was training. Historians still argue whether daily journaling was widespread in the Stoic world, or just practiced by its philosophers. But what's clear is this: writing was seen as a tool for wisdom, not a luxury. And Carl Jung? Oh, he took it further. He believed the unconscious constantly tried to speak to us through symbols, moods, even dreams. And journaling? It was a way of decoding the messages your conscious mind was too distracted to notice. Let's joke for a second. Sometimes journaling feels like writing to a slightly confused future version of yourself. Dear me, I'm not sure what I'm doing, but here's everything I'm overthinking right now. That's okay. That's the point. This isn't about clarity before you write. It's about finding clarity by writing. You're not solving everything. You're naming it, laying it out on paper so your mind doesn't have to carry the entire load. Start with one sentence, a question, a worry, a win, something you're grateful for, something you're still chewing on from last week. Just let it come. No edits, no filters, just flow. You might be surprised what surfaces. A tension you didn't realize you were holding, a resentment that's still simmering, a truth you haven't spoken aloud, even to yourself. And here's the quiet magic. When it's on paper, it loses power. It becomes visible, finite, manageable. It's no longer swirling in the background, pulling strings like some emotional puppet master. You see it. You face it. You own it. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Journaling is that act of making, of seeing, of saying, "No more shadows. Let's bring this into light." It doesn't have to be long, 5 minutes, 2 paragraphs, a bulleted list. Some mornings it's a storm, others it's a single line. I feel stuck. I miss someone. I'm scared. I'm proud. That's enough. This isn't performance, this is honesty. And the most important honesty is always the kind you offer yourself. And let's be clear, journaling doesn't guarantee enlightenment. You won't suddenly levitate because you wrote, "I'm tired and overwhelmed." But you will feel lighter, clearer, like you've taken your messy inner world and given it form. And when you close the notebook, you'll walk away with less noise in your head and more space in your chest. Because the point of journaling isn't to write something beautiful, it's to get the chaos out of your system before the day fills you up again. This isn't fluff, it's mental hygiene, it's self-leadership. And it's one of the simplest, most powerful things you can do before the world gets loud. You don't need to journal perfectly. You just need to begin. The fog has lifted. Your body's moving, your thoughts are cleared, your mind feels slightly more like a well-organized studio and less like a noisy group chat at 3 a.m. But now you're facing the dragon most people don't even recognize until it eats half their day. Direction. Because here's the sneaky truth. Most mornings aren't ruined by doing too much. They're ruined by not knowing what to do at all. You flit from one half-formed idea to another, answering emails, checking headlines, clicking tabs like a digital squirrel on espresso. Busy, yes, productive, not even close. You sit, maybe still holding your pen, and ask the question that changes everything. What matters most today? And then you answer it, not with a dream board or an overwhelming 37-item to-do list, but with 3 clear, specific, achievable goals. 3. Why 3? Because more than that becomes noise. Less than that invites drift. This is the art of strategic focus, deciding in advance who you're going to be today and what you're going to move forward. One could be personal, one could be work-related, one could be maintenance. Clean the fridge, pay that bill. Call your sister back before she starts passive-aggressively texting song lyrics that remind her of you. These goals aren't just tasks, they're anchors, touch points that give your day a shape, so you don't lose yourself to the tide of distractions. Epictetus laid it down plainly. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Translation: decide who you are, then act like it. Historians still debate whether Stoic philosophers time-blocked their parchments like modern-day productivity YouTubers, but their writings are full of intentionality. They didn't drift through the day hoping clarity would strike, they mapped it. Carl Jung? He'd nod with a furrowed brow and say, "This is individuation in action, becoming who you truly are, not by accident, but by decision." He believed goals weren't just about achievement, they were about identity. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart, he said. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. So you look inside, and instead of a vague hope for a better day, you write, "Email my boss with the revised pitch." Take a 20-minute walk with no phone. Write one honest paragraph in my personal journal. Simple, doable, real. Because here's the trap. Most people mistake motion for progress. They stay busy, not effective. They respond to everything urgent and miss what's actually important. You're setting the terms. Let's laugh for a second. Sometimes the hardest part is not choosing the goals. It's sticking to just 3. Your brain wants to add 15 more. Resist. This isn't a grocery list. This is a compass, and when distractions show up, and they will, you come back to these 3. Not with guilt, not with panic, just with calm certainty. This is what I chose. This is what matters. You become unshakable, not because life is easy, but because your focus is clear. This habit, it's small, but it rewires everything. You wake up and your mind doesn't flail around like a balloon on a windy day. It steps into structure. It knows what matters. And that changes how you show up for your work, your people, your own sense of peace. And here's something nobody tells you. Finishing one small task is more energizing than starting 10 big ones. Completion builds confidence, momentum, trust in yourself, so you write your 3. And you carry them like a quiet secret through your day. You're not floating anymore. You're steering. You've got your 3 goals. They sit there like quiet lighthouses, steadfast, guiding you through whatever storms this day decides to throw at you. But now comes the part most people overlook. What you feed your mind before it starts working. Because let's be real, your brain is starving when you wake up. It's been processing dreams, regulating your body, keeping your heart beating. It wants input. It's looking for direction. And if you don't give it something intentional, it'll grab whatever junk is closest. You know what that means? The endless scroll, the news cycle, the rage bait headline, the influencer's morning smoothie made from moon dust and unattainable standards. So here's your move. Feed your mind. Clean content before the world offers you noise. This isn't about becoming some Stoic intellectual who reads ancient Greek while sipping matcha. It's about being deliberate with your first inputs. Because what you read, watch, or hear in those first minutes shapes how you feel, how you think, and how you show up. It's not a metaphor. It's neurochemistry. You pick up a book, maybe a page of philosophy, a piece of poetry, or even just a short passage from someone wise. You hit play on a podcast that actually expands your thinking, not one that's just gossip with better microphones. You choose a source that challenges you, grounds you, or reminds you who you are trying to be. Marcus Aurelius did this. He began his mornings not with strategy briefings or political gossip, but with meditations, private thoughts to prepare his mind. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, he wrote. And what's the first color you're pouring into yours? Historians still debate whether his journals were written first thing each day or spread throughout, but the theme remains. Deliberate reflection was the emperor's armor, and he ruled the most chaotic empire in the world with an unnerving, calm. Carl Jung also insisted on being mindful of early mental input. You are what you do, not what you say you'll do, he wrote, and doing includes consuming every article, every sentence, every video clip. These are not passive. They shape you. Let's joke for a second. We've all gone down that YouTube rabbit hole at 7:15 a.m. You start with how to make your bed like a Navy SEAL, and 30 minutes later you're watching a raccoon make a sandwich. It happens. But this isn't about guilt. It's about interruption. About choosing something different, something better. Reading for 10 minutes doesn't mean you've joined a monastery. It means you've chosen to lead yourself before others do. And it doesn't have to be ancient wisdom, though the Stoics are great company. It could be a memoir, a paragraph from a book that reminds you you're not alone, a line of poetry that cracks your cynicism just wide enough to let hope back in. The key is intention. You're deciding what kind of thoughts you want echoing in your head when the day gets loud, what kind of energy you want steering your conversations, what kind of ideas you want anchoring your choices. Let's bring in a quirky fact. In medieval monasteries, monks would begin their day with lectio divina, a slow, meditative reading of sacred texts, not to memorize them but to let them soak, to absorb their essence before doing anything else. This morning ritual isn't that different. You're not studying, you're steeping. Your thoughts, your mood, your identity. And once you're done, whether it's 5 minutes or 20, you don't rush to action. You carry the tone. You let it settle. Like tuning an instrument before a concert. Quiet, intentional. Because once the day starts spinning, you won't have time to filter every input. But if you start with strength, you're better prepared for whatever noise tries to find its way in. This is not about being perfect. It's about being conscious, a little more aligned, a little less reactive, a little more you. So tomorrow morning, before you scroll, before you text, before the day begins, ask yourself, what do I want to color my mind with today? And then choose something worth wearing. The sun's higher now, casting long shadows across the floor. You've hydrated, moved, written, focused, read. But before you leap fully into the day, there's one more stop. And it happens not with your hands, but with your imagination. You close your eyes, just for a moment. And you see it. Not the to-do list, not the traffic, not the inbox with 47 unread emails. You see yourself. Moving through the day, but not on autopilot. You see the version of you you're building, the one who speaks calmly when tension rises, who stays steady when things break, who remembers the mission in the middle of the noise. This is visualization. And before you roll your eyes or assume it's all scented candles and law of attraction vision boards, let's get serious, because this isn't fluff. This is neuroscience. When you mentally rehearse a behavior, your brain lights up the same pathways as when you physically do it. That means you can train for confidence, courage, clarity before you ever leave the house. You're not pretending, you're preparing. Elite athletes have used this for decades. Michael Phelps visualized every stroke of his races, every possible mistake, and every perfect performance. So when the real moment came, his body already knew what to do. Historians still debate whether ancient philosophers formerly practiced what we now call visualization, but one Stoic exercise makes it clear: premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortune. Visualizing. What could go wrong? Not to become anxious, but to prepare your mind, to make resilience automatic. And on the flip side, they also reflected on who they wanted to become. Epictetus said, "Practice yourself for heaven's sake in little things and then proceed to greater." Visualization is that practice. It's the mental dress rehearsal for how you want to respond before life tests you. Carl Jung, he would call this integration, the conscious mind collaborating with the unconscious. He once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." This isn't about fantasy. This is about waking up your inner compass and setting the coordinates. So, you sit, or lie back, and you walk through the day in your mind. You picture how you'll speak during that difficult conversation. You imagine yourself standing tall, even when your voice shakes. You see yourself pausing instead of snapping, choosing clarity over chaos. And here's the trick. Make it visceral. Don't just see yourself doing the thing, feel it. What's your breathing like? Your body language? How do you handle the inevitable setbacks? What happens when your plan hits friction? Because it will. And when it does, your brain won't be caught off guard. It will say, "We've been here before. Let's add a little humor." Yes, it may feel weird at first. You're sitting there, eyes closed, mentally preparing to handle Karen from accounting with Zen-like grace. But the weirdness fades, and what's left is a kind of calm confidence. That's hard to fake. You become the kind of person who doesn't just react to life but rehearses for it. You walk into meetings like you've already met the tension. You navigate traffic like you expected every red light. You show up, not just physically, but fully. Visualization isn't magic. It's mental prep. It's what the Stoics did in Scrolls, what athletes do in locker rooms, and what leaders do behind closed doors. You do it now. For 5 minutes. Just 5. And when you open your eyes, you're not the same. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. You're anchored, aligned, ready. The day may be unpredictable, but you've already been through it once. The sunlight hits your face just right now. Warm, golden, gentle. The world is awake, and so are you. But not in that frantic, caffeinated, "Oh no, I forgot to send that email" kind of way. You're here, present. And now it's time for the quietest but maybe most powerful habit of the morning. Gratitude. Not the hashtag kind. Not the performative kind. The real, grounded, sometimes gritty kind that doesn't wait for perfect conditions to be thankful. The kind that notices, not because everything's great, but because something is. You don't need a journal or a list app, just a few seconds of stillness. You look around, at the mug in your hands, breeze through the curtain, the sound of a neighbor's dog barking. The fact that your legs work and your lungs fill and your mind, after everything, is still trying. You say, "Thank you." Not out loud, not to anyone. Maybe not even to the universe in particular. Just to the moment. Because gratitude isn't just an emotion, it's a lens. And the Stoics wore it like armor. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart." And for him, gratitude wasn't a soft virtue. It was a shield against suffering. A way of staying rooted when everything around you tried to pull you into fear, scarcity, or resentment. Historians often highlight how Stoic writings return again and again to themes of appreciation, of life, of breath, of small pleasures, and not because they had easy lives. On the contrary, many were exiled, imprisoned, persecuted, but even then they found things worth noticing, worth honoring. Carl Jung would tell you this practice goes deeper than emotion. He believed that much of our anxiety and suffering came from disconnection, from self, from meaning, from the present. And gratitude? Gratitude reconnects. You start to notice your life again, not the highlight reel, not the dream version, the actual life you're in with all its dust and beauty and chaos and ordinariness. You see what's good, not in spite of the mess, but within it. Here's a quirky fact. In a neuroscience study, researchers found that people who practiced daily gratitude actually had measurable changes in brain activity, higher levels of dopamine and serotonin, lower cortisol. It wasn't abstract. It was biological. You literally start training your brain to scan for what's right instead of obsessing over what's missing. And in a world constantly yelling at you about what you lack, money, status, followers, abs, that's a quiet revolution. Let's joke for a moment. No, gratitude won't fix your email inbox, or magically pay your rent, or stop your cat from knocking over the plant again, but it will change the tone of your inner voice. And sometimes that's the most important voice in the room. And the best part? Gratitude stacks. You name one thing and your brain starts offering you more. It's like a mental buy one, get one free deal. You thank your bed for being warm, and then you remember the friend who texted you yesterday, and then you feel a little swell of love for your weird little life. That's the power of noticing. You can keep it simple. I'm grateful my body works today. I'm grateful for the smell of coffee. I'm grateful I get another shot at this whole being human thing. That's it. You don't need to be poetic. You just need to be real. Because gratitude doesn't just soften your morning, it sharpens your focus. You're less likely to spiral into stress when you start your day with enoughness. You're less reactive, less needy, less vulnerable to whatever drama or distraction walks through your metaphorical door. And the funny thing? It doesn't just help you. A grateful person shows up differently. For their partner, their coworkers, their friends. You become calmer, kinder, more patient. Not because you're trying to be a saint, but because you're operating from fullness instead of deficit. So as you sip your drink, lace your shoes, or grab your keys, take one last second to whisper, thank you, for something, for anything, for being here. Because this life, this morning, this exact you, it's fleeting and beautiful, and right now, you're grounded now, centered, steady. You've hydrated your body, stirred your soul, and chosen your thoughts. But before the world starts knocking, before emails, meetings, school drop-offs, or whatever chaos usually swings the door open, it's time to sharpen your mental spear with a single powerful habit. Read one Stoic line, just one. Not a chapter, not a lecture. A line, a sentence that sinks its teeth into your thinking and doesn't let go. A line that doesn't just sound wise. It applies, it has weight, and it travels with you throughout the day, like a compass made of words. Marcus Aurelius, writing only to himself, once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." That's not metaphor. That's blueprint. Your mind is not neutral in the morning. It's absorbent. So why not choose a color that actually helps? Pick a line. Something from Meditations or Epictetus or Seneca. Something that hits, that holds, that challenges. Write it on a sticky note. Speak it out loud. Sit with it for 1 minute before you touch your phone or start your car. Because that line, that's not just philosophy. That's preparation. Historians suggest that Roman emperors, especially Marcus, used these daily meditations not just to reflect, but to prepare their psychology for the challenges ahead. His world was war, betrayal, disease, and yet he remained calm, steady, because he wasn't winging it, he was practicing. And let's add a touch of fringe trivia. There's a preserved letter from Seneca that suggests he would read and reread the same single quote multiple times a day, saying that it stuck like good food when properly chewed. Even in antiquity, repetition wasn't redundancy. It was reinforcement. Carl Jung, always poking around the mind's basement, believed in these small daily rituals of mental calibration. He'd call them archetypal reflections, anchors for the psyche. He believed that without these grounding ideas, the unconscious would run the show. And often, it doesn't drive gently. So, you choose your quote like you choose your armor, not because the day will be easy, but because now you're ready for it. Let's say today's line is from Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Simple, right? But watch how it changes things. You spill coffee on your shirt, you remember the line. Traffic backs up, you breathe differently. A passive-aggressive message pings in, you pause before replying. You're not a Zen master yet, but you're not flinching either. Because your mind started with intention. This isn't superstition. This is self-leadership, and here's the beauty of it. The quote doesn't need to be ancient, it just needs to be true for you. It could be from a Stoic, a modern thinker, a grandparent, even something you wrote yourself. The key is, it has to speak directly to where you are today. Let's lighten the moment. Some mornings your quote might feel less like wisdom and more like a reminder not to throat punch someone before 9 a.m. And that's valid. If I will not take the bait today is your Stoic mantra, so be it. That counts. The point is, you're not waking into chaos. You're choosing your thought before the noise tries to choose it for you. This is how you build emotional armor, one sentence at a time. Not with grand speeches, with quiet decisions. And over time, those lines build a framework. You don't just read Stoic quotes, you become one. Your thoughts, calmer. Your reactions, slower. Your presence, stronger. Not perfect, just prepared. So, tomorrow morning before you get swept into everyone else's urgency, pause. Find your line, read it, hold it, carry it, because one good sentence, well-placed, well-timed, can anchor you for hours. And when the storm hits, you'll remember, you started steady. And that steadiness, it's still there. You step outside. No agenda, no podcast in your ears, just air. You feel it, crisp, warm, wet, maybe a little sharp against your skin. You take a breath that's deeper than usual, not because someone told you to, but because your body remembers. This is what it means to reconnect. Because for all the rituals you've practiced this morning, hydrating, journaling, moving, visualizing, there's one that doesn't come from you. It comes from nature. And you need it more than you realize. We weren't built to live entirely inside, to exist beneath fluorescent lights buried in inboxes crammed into schedules. We are biological creatures pretending to be machines. And that disconnect? That's where the quiet burnout begins. So now, you step into nature, even if it's just your backyard, your balcony, a tree-lined street, or a patch of sky above a sidewalk. You feel the ground beneath you. You listen. A bird. The breeze. Distant traffic. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. This is the ritual of rewilding. Bringing your attention back to something that was here long before you, and will be here long after. It's humbling in the best way. The Stoics didn't just tolerate nature, they revered it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Adapt yourself to the life you have been given, and truly love the people with whom destiny has surrounded you." He didn't say love your spreadsheets, he said love the life. To the Stoics, nature wasn't aesthetic, it was truth, a teacher, a mirror. When things felt out of control, they looked to the seasons, the sky, the rhythm of the world. Historians suggest that Roman philosophers often walked in gardens or meditated in courtyards. Their most powerful ideas came from observation, not theory. And then there's Carl Jung, who took it a step further. He believed that modern people suffered a deep psychological wound, separation from the natural world, that our minds were starving not just for meaning but for earthiness, for connection to soil, air, weather, what he called the nourishing ground of the soul. Here's a quirky Jungian note. He built a stone tower by hand on the shores of Lake Zurich using no electricity, no running water, just fire, stone, wind, and time. It was his sanctuary, a place to listen, to return. His reminder, you are part of something ancient. You don't need a stone tower. You just need 5 minutes. Step outside. Don't take your phone. Don't try to get your steps in. Just be. Let your senses recalibrate. Notice the texture of the bark on a tree, the way a leaf tilts toward sunlight, the shimmer of dew on a fence post, the rhythm of your own breathing against the background hum of the earth. And here's the magic. You don't have to do anything. Nature does the work for you. Studies now show that time in natural spaces lowers blood pressure, decreases cortisol, boosts immunity. But the real change? It's subtle. It's psycho-spiritual. You don't leave your problems behind, but they shrink. They stop screaming. They soften into solvable shapes. Let's have a little fun with it. Nature doesn't care if you're having a bad hair day. It doesn't care about your inbox or your followers. It's the one place where you can stop performing. Just breathe, stand, and be a creature for a moment. This doesn't have to be complicated. A walk around the block, a glance at the morning sky, a few steps barefoot in the grass. Let it be imperfect. The point isn't to escape life, it's to remember it. Because your nervous system isn't designed to run on 24/7 input. It needs balance. And nature gives you that, without selling you anything, without asking you to be more. So tomorrow, when the morning noise starts creeping in, step out. Not to check a box, but to return to something older than stress, older than thought. Return to stillness, to rhythm, to the quiet truth that you are not separate from this world. You are part of it, and sometimes the most powerful reset isn't what you do, it's what you let in. You step back inside. Maybe the ground's still clinging to your feet. Maybe your hands are a little cold from the breeze. Either way, something's shifted. You've returned with less tension, a little more breath in your chest, and now it's time for fuel. Because for all the talk of mindset, rituals, journaling, and focus, none of it sticks if your body's running on fumes. This is the moment where you choose to honor the machine. And no, that doesn't mean scarfing a protein bar while checking your phone. This means feeding yourself like someone you actually care about. You head into the kitchen and ask the quiet question, what will help me show up today? And here's where most people trip. Breakfast has been sold to us as either indulgence or obligation, a sugary rush of convenience or something we skip to save time. But the Stoics? They'd roll their eyes. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That includes what you put in your body, and not out of guilt or vanity, but because self-respect starts with self-nourishment. Historians note that the Stoics weren't about extremes. They believed in temperance, measured, intentional choices that supported the pursuit of virtue. They ate to sustain, not to escape, and their food was often simple, but whole. Now flash forward to modern life. The average person starts their day with caffeine and refined sugar. Instant energy, instant crash. Then we wonder why we feel foggy, irritable, distracted. It's not you, it's your fuel. Let's get practical. Your brain runs on glucose, but not the fast-burning kind from donuts and soda. It craves stable energy, slow carbs, healthy fats, protein, hydration. A simple breakfast of eggs, avocado, oats, fruit, yogurt with nuts. Any of these tells your system, I'm preparing you to perform, not just survive. And yes, you have time. You always have time for what you prioritize. Think of it like this. Would you expect a Formula One car to run on tap water and prayers? Would you send an elite athlete into the game on an empty stomach? No. Then why expect your brain to make important decisions, have hard conversations, solve problems, create art, and show up fully, while underfed? Carl Jung once said, "The mind is like the eye. It cannot see itself without reflection. The body is part of that reflection. When it's neglected, you can't think clearly. You're not lazy, you're underfueled." Let's laugh a little. You don't need to become a quinoa monk overnight. Nobody's asking you to milk almonds by hand while chanting Stoic quotes. Just eat real food, something that didn't come from a vending machine or a cartoon box. Even 5 mindful minutes with a good breakfast shifts your chemistry. You feel steadier, your cravings settle, your anxiety dips. Why? Because your system feels safe. And safe systems don't need to scramble for control. They operate with intention. And here's a wild tidbit. Certain nutrients, like omega-3 fatty acids, B vitamins, and magnesium, have been shown to reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety. Food isn't just fuel. It's neurochemical strategy. So tomorrow, when your stomach growls and the world tries to rush you, remember, you're not just feeding a body, you're fueling a mission. You're investing in your emotional stamina, your mental clarity, your capacity. Make it count. And here's the bigger shift. When you feed yourself well, you reinforce the belief that you matter, that you're not just reacting to the day, you're preparing for it. You're protecting your energy before you spend it. That is Stoic self-respect in action. So take a breath, take a bite, and say with quiet certainty, "I'm here. I'm ready. Let's go." Your body is nourished. Your mind is calm. Your day has shape. And yet, there's still one whisper left in the shadows. One last frontier that decides whether your energy goes forward like a steady current or gets hijacked before you even leave the room. It's your inner voice, not the one you use for others, the one you use when you talk to yourself. Because even with every morning habit in place, even with your muscles stretched, your thoughts journaled, your goals chosen, if that voice inside your head is still echoing yesterday's doubts, your day won't belong to you. Not really. And so now you speak, not out of ego, not for show, but as an act of internal leadership. You affirm. No, not in the cheesy Instagram quote sense. This isn't about yelling, "I'm a millionaire," while your rent is overdue. This is about choosing a few simple true statements and saying them out loud. Because your nervous system is always listening. And the things you say to yourself are the scaffolding your brain builds its expectations on. Let's say that again. What you say becomes what you believe. Over time, repetition becomes identity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But it's not just thoughts, it's language. Words carry color, weight, direction. Historians don't know if he whispered his lines aloud, but his meditations read like affirmations. You have power over your mind. Do not waste what remains of your life. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. These were not for show. These were mantras for war, for loss, for responsibility. Carl Jung echoed this idea from a psychological angle. Words are animals, alive with a will of their own. And when you speak those words, especially first thing in the morning, you aren't just talking to yourself, you're talking into yourself. You're reshaping the architecture of your emotional response. So, What do you say? Start small. I control how I respond. I have what I need to begin. I choose clarity over chaos. I am not behind. I am here. You're not chanting, you're claiming. Quietly, intentionally. And yes, it will feel awkward at first. You'll feel silly talking to yourself in the bathroom mirror. But guess what? That inner critic you usually listen to, it talks all the time. Uninvited. Doubt doesn't ask for permission. Why should belief? Here's the science. Spoken affirmations activate areas in the brain associated with self-processing and reward. Saying it aloud strengthens the belief, especially when paired with consistent action. It's like watering a seed. The plant doesn't shoot up overnight, but without water, it withers before it gets a chance. Let's joke for a second. If your pet can stare at you while you talk to your houseplants, it can survive you saying, "I've got this," to your own reflection. Nobody's watching, and even if they are, you're training something they can't see. This is mental rehearsal, emotional self-defense, daily restoration of identity. And the beauty? You can adapt it every day. You're not locked into one phrase. Some mornings you need softness. I am allowed to go slow. Other mornings, you need fire. I do hard things. Either way, you are choosing your script before the world hands you one. Because if you don't speak for yourself, the noise will. Affirmations aren't just motivation. They're micro-decisions about who you're becoming, and with each word, you align yourself just a little more. Not perfect, but true. Now, you've come full circle. You've awakened not just your body, but your mindset. You've returned to yourself. You've tuned your inner frequency before the world gets a chance to distort it. And as your morning concludes, you carry with you not just a routine, but a ritual, a way of saying every single day, I belong to myself, and I'm ready for whatever comes next. So now, you're here. The rituals are complete. The morning has unfolded not as chaos, but as a sequence, steady, intentional, entirely yours. You've walked through the silence, faced the cold, spoken with purpose, not because you had to, but because you chose to. And that choice? It matters more than any single outcome today, because this wasn't about checking boxes. It wasn't about perfection. It was about presence, about reclaiming what most people give away by 7 a.m., their attention, their energy, their mind. You started small, with a sip of water, a breath, a stretch. You layered habit upon habit until your morning became a fortress, a place where clarity could live, where confidence could stretch its legs before the day asked for anything. And now, you carry that energy with you. No matter what happens next, traffic, tension, noise, you've already done the hardest part. You've returned to yourself. You've built a system that reflects your values, not the world's urgency, not the algorithm's agenda, but your own quiet truth. So let it settle now. Let your body soften. Let your breathing slow. And as the lights dim around your thoughts, let this final truth tuck you in. You don't need to control the entire day. You just need to own your morning. And today, you did. Sleep well, warrior of the quiet path. You've earned it. Sweet dreams.